Welcome to the show. Welcome to Narrate Your Story TV. My name is Dr. Christy Iwuchukwu. And when I am not doing this show that we do every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 a.m. on Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's right. When I'm not doing this show, I'm helping female entrepreneurs create memorable presentations that help them stand out from the noise, be seen as the authority that they are, so that they can enroll more of their ideal clients with ease. And we have an incredible show today. So today we're talking about against all odds. You might be thinking, what is against all odds? Wait a minute. We have an amazing speaker coming to speak to us today. And I'll tell you more about it. But first of all, let me talk about who is our speaker today. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Kathy Barton Brown. That's right. And she is a psychotherapist in private practice for almost 40 years. Her passion is traveling and speaking internationally on reversing the curse of dysfunctional relationships and hosting her weekly radio show on Facebook on conversation about love, life, and relationships. Please help me welcome my guest today, Dr. Kathy Barton Brown. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for the invite, and I'm so happy to be here with you.
Awesome. You and I go way back, and I just love the relationship that we get to connect every now and then. And you're always here to share information, such as the one that you are going to share today, because I think it's relevant in our community today, especially because of pandemic. So today, before even we begin, I know about you, but our viewers may not know who you are. Please share with us and tell us, who are you?
I am a mother of two beautiful daughters, and I have a heart to serve people and to help people overcome emotional challenges and childhood stigmas and childhood traumas. Many times in our community, we are ashamed of mental health services. We're ashamed of mental health needs. And I just believe if we could just release the stigma of getting mental health services, then we could take care of our mental health before it becomes mental illness. So I am just a down home, around the block kind of girl who had lived through her own challenges in my family, in my own mental health. And I know the importance of getting the word out that there is help available for even the basic mental needs that we have.
Awesome. Every time I do this show, my hope that the content of this video, the content of this conversation today blesses someone out there. And I don't know who we're going to be talking today, and I hope that it blesses someone out there. Let's begin. We're still, even though we've gone back to work, we're still in the era of COVID. Mm-hmm. And that has really brought a lot of stress to a lot of people. Stress because perhaps you lost your job. Stress because, believe it or not, because if you're cohabiting, if you're living together, both of you are now living together 24 hours a day. It's no longer one person goes to work and one person stays home or come back home later on. It's 24 hours because of pandemic. And that has really changed a lot of things. And one of the things from what I read is abuse has skyrocketed since this COVID. And oftentimes I think there's already a problem. It's just that this help kind of opened it up. What in your practice have you noticed that has changed in the way that we communicate? What has changed? What have you seen? What's on the rise because of this? Let's dive into it, and then we'll continue the conversation.
Well, you're absolutely right. Domestic violence did increase sharply during the pandemic, because all of a sudden you had two people who maybe had been married for years, but really never really had 24-hour access to each other. Maybe both went to work and they passed like ships in the night when all of a sudden everyone was thrown into prison. It was as if someone came to each of our homes, handcuffed us, and walked us off to prison for 2 years. We were forced to stay in the house, and we didn't have the outlets that we usually would have. So domestic violence went up, divorces went up, because people found out I don't even like my spouse anymore. In fact, I haven't liked you in a while, and now that I've had to be forced to spend time with you, I don't want to be with you anymore. The rate of alcoholism went up. The alcohol sales in my area increased 400%
Wow.
because so many people turned to alcohol to deal with depression and maybe not being able to sleep at night, or so depressed that life had changed so much that they decided I would rather stay drunk than to deal with being all day, every day and not being able to go anywhere. The drug use went way up. Online shopping and gambling went way up, and so did people coping by eating and overeating. So there we have the pandemic 30, the pandemic 50, 30 pounds, 50 pounds. I even know someone that gained 100 pounds during the pandemic because their outlet became good food. So those are the things that increased during the pandemic.
Wow. As we are continuing this conversation, I once interviewed a medical doctor, and the conversation went this way that, when you see someone that, not everybody, but in some cases, someone who has had trauma, perhaps at the age of even 5 years old, even 4 years old, that trauma, you can see somebody 50 years old, 60 years old, and they are still acting like a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old. And you're thinking to yourself, wait just a minute. Are you, I won't say it here, but I can't believe it. Can't you just get it? Don't you get it? Like you acting like a child. And I come to realize that really, that's their reality, because that person is acting like a child because they are still stuck in their childhood. But they have the body of a 60-year-old, a 50-year-old, but they have the mind of a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old. And I never really comprehend how that is possible. Can you share with our viewers what's going on here?
So what happens when there's a trauma, it literally hits the brain and it becomes a permanent memory. So, like even in the Old Testament, whenever there was a victory or loss, they would set a stone, and this place became known as the place of my victory, the place of my defeat. So with the brain, whenever there's a trauma, whatever age that trauma happened, there is a memorial set in the brain to always remember this is the place of. And so a piece of the brain is stuck there at that age. So if something happened at the age of 10, that 10-year-old is always going to be there popping up at various times. So we can go along and say, man, she really seems immature about this particular thing, but she's very mature and grown and responsible over here. But that is that trauma showing up. And what we do, rather than say, over here, when I see this, it triggers me back to being 10 years old. We deny it. We ignore it. We pretend that we're not affected by the things that have happened in childhood. And people will even say to you, get over it. Well, you can't get over a brain part that's stuck, but we can process it. But so many of us have never stopped to process the traumas from childhood. I had a wonderful childhood. Never mind, every time I see a bottle of alcohol, I quiver and tremor on the inside because I remember my dad getting drunk and beating everyone and my mom's face being scarred. That's a trigger. And it triggers back to that 10-year-old little girl that was scared and is now stuck in that place.
Wow. I really, as we were having that conversation, as I was having that conversation with the doctor, I remember asking the question, that trauma was where the child was not allowed to speak her mind.
Mhm.
So the child, instead of opening up at that particular time, anytime that she has something to say, she won't say it. She will write a letter to the
Mhm.
person.
Mhm.
She can write 5, 6, 7, 10 pages of letter,
Mhm.
and she has no problem writing the letter because that's where she gets to express herself.
Mhm.
But facing the person and talking, not just that person, anybody that has become who she is. She'll rather talk than be seen or speak at all.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's a great disservice that we really don't talk about. And you, like you said, you see somebody at 50, 60 years old, it's like, how can you be mature in here, but you're not really mature in here? You're acting like a child. And in our community, as you know, it's a taboo.
Mhm.
We don't like to talk about it. The word mental illness is a taboo. And there's so many things that we can categorize under mental illness. For example, the one that is most commonly known is depression. And
Mhm.
I remember when my father died, I I stopped living. And it doesn't matter how old you are at the time,
That's right.
you stop living. Because I was very close to my father, and I thought my world has just ended. I was simply existing for months, even past a year. I did not know what was going on with me. It really, when I look at it now that I know more about depression, it's part of it. But I didn't know it then. I didn't want to do anything. I
Mhm.
just I felt like I was out of this world, simply existing. Just, it was so much that went on with me emotionally within that period of time. But had somebody said you're depressed, I would have fought the person, because immediately depression is like your cycle.
Right. Right.
You
Mhm.
have mental issue. You
You're
have
right.
cycle. But
Mhm.
I've come to realize that some depression can be temporary, like
Right.
in a case of somebody dying that
Yep.
you're very
Mhm.
close to. It can be anything,
That's
but
right.
it can be temporary. It can be permanent. It can be there before, even before you were, after you were born, or even before, right?
Mhm.
But it's hard to separate. But because we look at mental illness as a taboo, everything that has to do with mental illness, we just shun at it.
Mhm.
Talk to us about it.
Well, when we grow up in homes and we're told as little bitty people, children should be seen and not heard. That means don't talk, and we take the voice away that way. And then when we say, never mind that we had a big fight and brawl here in the house and we broke up things and everyone was terrified, what goes on in this house stays in this house. And so you are not to go out and share any information from this house. So we are taught to take those things, tuck them away in our being, and pretend they never existed. So it sets us up to ignore our own issues because we don't want the label. We don't want the label of the alcoholic father or the abusive mother. We don't want the labels of they have mental issues over there. They're crazy. And so in our community, we are taught to just handle it. And we even over spiritualize it. Just
Mm,
pray for them. Oh, I feel depressed. Oh, just pray, honey. You know, God didn't mean for you to be depressed. Well, we can't pray our way through everything. And I know that's taboo to say, but there are some things we need to talk through. There are some things we need to dismantle and sort out. And having a person available in front of us to talk to is what helps us. Because we can talk to God all day long. That won't go back and fix that 10-year-old space that stopped developing. So when we make it more acceptable for going to therapy and publicly talk about the importance of therapy, and it's much better to have a therapist and talk to someone that is legally bound to keep your information confidential than it is to overeat, than it is to drink. then it is to gamble, then it is to overspend. All of these different things that we do to throw off this energy that's on the inside that's too much for us. This is why we end up with high blood pressure and strokes, because the stress of carrying things that we should be talking about is too much on the body. But it is taboo to go to mental health. So that mental health place, that's where the crazy people go. Well, some may be genuinely crazy. However, a lot of them might just know it's important to talk out some things. You cannot ignore all things. You cannot pray through all things. Some things you need professional help, and there's nothing wrong with getting professional help.
And you brought up a good point. One of them is, I help women in narrating their story. And one thing I have learned is that you can go, and I have to say, I am not a therapist, okay? I just have to say that I'm not a therapist. But one thing that I have learned in that process is that some of these women may have gone to therapy, may have seen a psychologist, but there's something to say about freeing yourself, if you get what I'm saying. What am I saying? Mm-hmm. I'm saying that if you can truly gone through the pain, which is so painful when you're going through it. Mm-hmm. And when we work together, what I realize is, number one, you just kind of pointed at it, is having somebody else that is not in that circle, but really has your interest in mind. It has to be one. There has to be trust. That has to be established, where that person now begins to pull her guard down. You have to show empathy so that the person will understand, I get you, I see you, I validate your pain. I may not know everything that you went through, but I get you. And that person, little by little, begins to open up, begins to talk to you. And the reason that why I feel like one of the reasons they haven't been able to talk about it is they're worried about, if it's a mom, if it's a dad, if I share this, how will that person feel about me? Mm-hmm. Even to the siblings. Will it go out on social media? On social media. If I talk to a pastor, and I don't have any reservation about that. I'm just saying that if I talk to a pastor, would the person preach about it the next Sunday? Will that person tell somebody else? It's self-preservation, number one. And you never share. You never overcome. You've been to therapy and done all these things on the surface, but the inside is still there. And so through working with them, through the process, all of a sudden they emerge to be somebody else. They emerge to look at what they've been through as a lesson to share with somebody else, to give that person, through the lesson, transformation that will help that person heal. Because that's what serving is all about. Serving is about using your experience, what you have been through in life, and overcome it to help somebody else going through it, so they don't have to go through the pain that you went through. And I've always encouraged my students, anytime you have not overcome whatever you went through or still going through, that's not what you talk about on the stage, because the last thing that you want people to do is to bring you tissue because you are crying. So you're robbing them the transformation they would have received because of your speaking. So when it comes to your practice and what you have seen, what are the symptoms of someone who has mental illness, different kinds? The one that is so prevalent in our society is depression, that we don't like to talk about it. How are you? I'm okay. Myself included. I didn't know what was going on when my father died, right? If I had known, maybe I would have approached it differently, because a lot of us really don't know what signs that maybe not just ordinary, I'm sick, not just ordinary, I'm not feeling well. Something else may be going on. Can you share with us?
So we'll first start by going over a few of the symptoms of depression. And some of the symptoms of other diagnoses overlap. For instance, you may see in depression sleeping too much or not sleeping enough. Appetite increases or your appetite may decrease. You can also see that with anxiety because you may not eat as much because you're up here. And anxiety can be deceptive because on the outside you look really calm, but on the inside it's like you're all uptight and it shows up in the muscles. You may hyperventilate. With depression, you lose interest in things you normally have an interest in. If you like to bowl, you no longer have any passion for bowling. You may actually isolate yourself and not really want to be around people. Maybe you're an outgoing person and all of a sudden you have no interest in any kind of social activity. I don't want to be around friends and family. Um, some people have rage, that they're angry, and it shows up in this rage. And this is particularly true with men because many times men won't show that they're hurt, that they're wounded, but they will be angry and it's acceptable. Whereas with women, we're supposed to be delicate and sweet and kind, so we don't show our anger. But these things can indicate depression. One of the other things that happen with depression is mood swings, where people can have a normal conversation with you, and it's like one trigger, and you almost look hormonal. And when we talk about hormones, particularly with women who are going through menopause or approaching menopause, oftentimes that the insomnia and not sleeping is a big issue. And so to resolve it, they drink. They buy the little dollar shot bottles and they take little dollar shot bottle every night to help them sleep, not knowing that it's hormonal. So we have to be careful to discern whether this is true, a mental health issue, or is this a hormonal issue and it's menopause? Or is it because I've never dealt with being sexually molested, and so I have the anxiety. So it's all these different things. Anytime you have a change, a complete change in your personality, in your ability to go out and function, or you shut down. One of the things that's confusing about people who are suicidal, a lot of people use suicidal thoughts and conversations to get attention. But a lot of people who are truly suicidal don't say a word, but they may give you things that are valuable to them. They may have been depressed for years and all of a sudden there's a spark in them of, oh, I'm just so happy. Well, one of the reasons they become so happy is because in their mind, they have a solution to their emotional pain. I'm going to commit suicide. So they come to the happy place that finally this torture, and that's what it is for them, this torture will be over. So anytime you are having a complete different picture of who you are, and that's what you're presenting, more than likely there's something mentally going on. And it's okay to acknowledge that. It's okay not to be okay. It is okay.
It's okay not to be okay. And that's the hardest thing. It's okay. Knowing and understanding that it is okay not to be okay. There's nothing wrong with it. We are not with something is wrong with us. There has to be one thing. If you're good here, maybe you're not good yet. Understanding that it's okay to be okay. And in our society, you talked about male. In our society, men are not supposed to show emotion. I remember one time talking to a guy that I work with, and I remember him saying, no, I asked him a question. We're talking about something that came up, and I said, why don't you tell your wife? And he said, no. And I said, why? And he said, because she will laugh at me, because my daughter will laugh at me, right? And I immediately said, if your wife is hurting, what would you do? He immediately said, I would do anything not to, to ease her pain. I would do anything to ease her pain. And I said, well, don't you think that your wife also feels that way about easing your own pain? Never. No, I'm not. I can't show my emotion. I can't cry. I said, you can't cry in front of your wife? No, because they will look at me as, she will look at me, her and my daughter will look at me as being weak or make fun of me. And I said to myself, oh my God, we have created a monster because of societal norm. We really have created a monster where you're not supposed to show your emotion, because when you show your emotion, you are weak, and people, even your family, we're not even talking about outsiders, I'm talking about families looking at you like you are weak. If anything, anybody will protect you, what I would think, your wife will be the number one fan, right? But you
Should
can,
be.
it should be your number. Okay, I'll reframe that. Should be your number one fan. But here you are, you can't even open up. And I wonder how many times that man has gone to bed with his eyes open, even though people think, even though the wife probably think he's sleeping. He wasn't sleeping, right?
Mhm.
And so for women, now ours comes in it. You know, we talk, we talk in the bathroom. Women, it doesn't even matter. We cry at the
Mhm.
drop of a bucket. We cry.
Mhm.
You know, crying is a sort of therapy in a way. It
Mhm.
really is a therapy. Crying is a sort of therapy. So
Mhm.
talk, cry, but we get it out. We get it out for the most part, right?
Right.
And it's so unfortunate that men are not able to do the same thing. That the society have said you can't talk. You are not masculine. You're supposed to stuff it up. You're supposed to be this macho man where
Mhm.
you are a protector. And yes, they are protectors. You are the provider. And yes, some of them are providers. And yes, you are this, you are that. Is supposed to show it. Oh my God, we've done disservice to them. The society has done disservice to these men. And it's unfortunately because even the young ones, as young as 7 years old, that's even old, as young as 5, they are already having, and I guess it's inherent. I don't know whether it's society or it's inherent, but it's a problem.
It's
Because
it's
when I
it's
look,
taught.
yes,
It's literally taught. You could have a father of a son and a daughter, and they could be twins. And the daughter falls down and scrapes her knee, and the father will go over, pick her up, kiss her knee, love on her, restore her. And the son can fall and scrape his knee the same way. Get up, you're okay. Get up. You better not cry. And so the message is loud and clear. So I'll put you out on the football field at 5 years old. And when that boy tackles you and you got his elbow in your gut, you better not cry. So you get up and you go after that guy for the rest of the game until you take him down. But you cannot be vulnerable and show that hurt. So we teach them early to be angry and retaliate rather than stop and say, oh, that really hurts. And boys who are stopped and acknowledge that they have pain are considered soft and weak, and even begin to get labels that you are gay, you're a sissy, you're all these other negative connotations simply because they're human. If God didn't intend for boys and men to cry, they wouldn't have tear ducts. I make it a point in my practice to hug every person before they leave. It's called the hug of reassurance. Dr. Christie, I can tell you without any reservation that men more than women lay on my shoulder and weep like a baby because they have been overlooked and told that they can't have this emotional expression. If you want to see a therapeutic emotional moment, hug someone longer than the comfort point. Hug them until you're uncomfortable. And there is a magical thing that happens between the two souls where that person will break and begin to cry. If you hug them for a minute, they will begin to cry because the hurt that they have on the inside is released through the emotional contact.
interesting. And I don't even know where to begin, because the more we talk and have this conversation, it brings me a lot of memory.
Mhm.
People that grew up in a household, and some of it is culture. Let's just
Yes.
Let's be honest. Some of it is culture. If
Very
you
much
grew
so.
up in a culture or in a household where you are not embraced, you're not hugged, you don't get that, right? Perhaps it's not their culture. Perhaps it's not the household. Maybe the man didn't grow up that way. Maybe the woman didn't grow up that way. And so you can't give what you don't have. You cannot give what you don't have. So they carry this on.
You can't give what you don't have, but you can reverse the curse. My grandmother was not an affectionate person whatsoever, to the point that my mother was 10 years old and said to herself, this 10-year-old girl, if I ever have children, I am going to nurture and I am going to emotionally connect and I am going to really be physically affectionate with them. A 10-year-old girl said in her heart, I don't like this in my family. I'm going to change it. Literally, my mother made my brother and I both very affectionate. We both love, we hug, she broke the curse. That is where the whole reverse the curse came from. A 10-year-old girl broke it. So we can't give what we didn't have, but we can recreate what we didn't have and make it happen.
In other words, you using what didn't feel good and say, I'm going to make somebody else feel good because I didn't feel good when this was happening to me. As a result, I'm going to make someone else feels good because that's how I would have loved to be treated. That's how I would have loved to feel. Right?
Right.
But then we let's get on to why do you think that we don't really want to bring all of this? We want to feel good. I don't want to feel depressed. I don't want to be depressed. Do you think all of it? In my own case, I didn't know what depression was, right? What do you think is really the main reason behind? Is it just because we don't want people to know how we feel, or do you feel is education, or you think that the problem is masked to the extent that it doesn't reveal itself? What is it?
I think it's several things. I think one is education, where we are just ignorant to the fact that we can change it. We think we have to accept how things have always been and keep them that way. I think the other thing is cultural boundaries, that we are held prisoner in our mind by cultural boundaries and standards. It is not acceptable in the culture to go talk to someone outside of our area, outside of our family. So we have to stay within the confines of the family. However, if I tell my sister that mom always, pinch me behind everyone's back, she's going to go back and tell mom. So we run the risk of now I'm in more trouble as an adult because I'm talking about pain from the childhood. I think the third thing is we have so much pride. And so we are taught to be prideful and cover things up and not to be transparent because we have to give a certain image, even at church. We know that mom has makeup on to cover a bruise from dad hitting her, but we get to church, we're all smiles and we're all praising the Lord. And then we go right back home miserable with everybody walking on eggshells because we don't know where the trigger is. We don't know where the bomb is. So you step the wrong way, say the wrong thing, and the bomb is there. So we're taught to, ignore. We're taught to cover up. We're taught to not be genuine, not be authentic, and not to be transparent because we have to give those images and stay in that place of pride. Because we can't have people say, that Jones family over there, they have alcoholics and they beat each other and they have sexual issues, and we can't have that said. So we're taught to stay in this place and keep the face on. So when our girls grow up and now they're looking for love in all the wrong places and all the wrong faces because of the issues they carry from not being able to talk about it and having to stay in the place of denial. It's an ugly cycle that only mental health, addressing the mental health issues can disintegrate. As long as we keep the face on, we keep carrying the burden, we keep carrying the heart pain. And the pain is something that, you can experience it in small doses every day, or you can get the big couple of doses and be healed from it.
And
It becomes a choice.
And I really think, as you are talking, I'm thinking education is a big part of it, because even though in our community, we don't talk much about it, because as I said, it's a taboo to talk about it. But even more so is that we don't even know. I don't even know how should I feel if I'm depressed, so that I can even reach out and ask somebody else. I can reach out to someone like you and ask for help. Even more so is the education that I'm not familiar with. What does it take? If I'm sleepy every time, maybe it has passed just regular sleep, right? I better reach out to somebody like you. Oftentimes, when we talked about it, oftentimes it's one of the main reasons, beside education, that people don't talk about it is they're not safe. They don't think that they will be safe. Whether you don't want to talk to your pastor and have the pastor preach the next Sunday. They may not mention your name, but you know they're talking about you. And I'm not saying pastors do this. It's just an example. It can be your
mother. But there are some that do it.
It can be your mother. It can be your sister. It can be your co-worker, right? So, and we are in a social media era. And the last thing, and they can even talk about it on social media. Or maybe you're friends with this person. God forbid, you guys no longer friends. The next thing you know, they're talking about it.
Right.
And like I said, it's self-preservation. People don't talk about it so much because I don't feel safe. Even so, you can be a spouse of somebody and don't even know that your spouse is going through this, because you have no idea what it is. And you don't know what the diagnosis, you don't know the symptoms. So you don't know. And that person may know, but they don't want to share because they are not safe. They are not safe to share.
Right.
And so when I think about this whole mental illness, I think about the children. Now and then, you see a lot of them committing suicide. And the society has come to a point where sometimes it almost feel like we have failed these children. We have so much in our lives that are going on. We have so much in our lives. Life used to be simple. Life used to be simple. Even though we had less, I believe we were happier. We were happier when we had less than what is going on right now, right?
Right.
And so it's like, wow. Suicide. Every time you turn around, a child is committing suicide. A child that hasn't had an opportunity to live life at all. So now what do you do? What do you do? What do you think are the things that we can begin to look at if you have children? I want to say, even if it's not your children, but I guess we have passed that, where it used to be it takes a village to raise a child. We are now, everybody is on his own or her own, right? So what do you think the society has to do as a whole to even begin to address this issue of teenagers and suicide?
I think it goes back to education and educating parents to be more sensitive and understanding with children's mental health. You know, a lot of us at my age, you know, we were taught children didn't have feelings. Children didn't have a right to have emotions or to express how they felt. And so that mindset became into other generations. Well, these children are very different than we were. So you have children as early as 7 years old committing suicide, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And then being successful in committing suicide. But you have parents who are still telling their teenagers, and my teen daughter shares stories sometimes about parents who say, you're not depressed. You don't even know what depression is. You don't have bills. You don't have to pay anything. You got food, you got clothes. What are you depressed about? Well, they may be depressed because they feel inadequate at school. They may be depressed because they're actually getting bullied at school. Maybe they're depressed because they feel like they don't measure up, or maybe they don't have the designer clothes that everybody at school seem to have. And never mind, some of the kids at school, parents might sell drugs. That's why they have these designer clothes. All the kids know is that kids make fun of me because I don't have designer things. So the battle in the mind is so much deeper than what we had to deal with. When I was growing up, nobody cares about designer clothes. We all wore Kmart, so it didn't matter. But these kids, every piece of clothing they have on has to have a label. So when our children, even some of the kids with the label, there's nothing on the inside. And so they crave, being accepted, being loved, being supported, being even told who they are, because when they don't know who they are, they take on everything around them. So there are so many kids who don't have adult oversight, don't have adult, conversation. Parents don't talk to them. They dress them up, but they don't have any conversation with them. So they're lonely on the inside. They're lost on the inside. So there's so many reasons that our young people are depressed, that, or suicidal, some even homicidal, come to school and shoot everyone up because they're angry. And the time that they were a little angry kid, no one paid attention. So now they're an angry teenager with a gun. And that is a dangerous combination.
And I'll take it back to what we said at the beginning, and that is that 10-year-old, that 7-year-old, still at 50 or 60, still stuck in that mindset of a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, right? Because the issue was never really addressed, the issue. But sometimes I have to say, the parents don't even know.
Yes. A lot of times the parents don't know.
They don't know. They don't know. Like you were talking about, oh, what do you know about depression? You don't even, you don't have bills to pay. You don't. But yeah, there's 7-year-olds, yes, they may not have bills to pay. But guess what? That being bullied in school, right? Because they don't have designer clothes, or because they don't have hair, or whatever the case may be. It's just as important and hurts more, even though they can pay bill. Right? So I think that sometimes some parents don't know what it is, what to look for. Some parents really don't know what it looks for. And it's so sad that in our society, conversation, speaking, which is supposed to be the fabric of our being, talking, having a conversation with somebody else is supposed to be the fabric of our being. But in this microwavable society that we live in, this microwavable society that we live in, it is no longer so. Sometimes you can have husband and wife, this person is going to work, this person is coming back. And the children are put in a home, somebody to care for the children. You can't even blame the parents, because in order to meet up with all the bills, with everything that needs to be done, they have to work. Right. And so it used to be, well, at least when I grew up, when you're sitting at least once a day, if not twice a day, morning and afternoon, and you're sitting on the table with your parents and they are talking, they are asking you questions. I didn't really think it was a big deal. It's now that I've grown up that I realize the importance of that. And, asking what's going on. And that's when you get to know what's going on, oftentimes, right? But now we live in a microwavable society where we had to get it yesterday. Not even today. We had to get it yesterday. We're always constantly. And that reminds me of a conversation with a girlfriend. And this girlfriend of mine, they used to have a UPS store. They used to have a UPS store. And something happened, the UPS store closed. And the husband said, oh, I love it. And I'm like, huh? How? And he said, I love it because now I'm even happier. I was happier when we were poor than now. I was happier when we were poor than now. And I say, wow. But then I think about myself, even myself. I think I was happier when I was going to school, that I didn't have any money,
Right.
that I did not have any money. Then now with so many responsibilities that you have to meet up, you have to go, you don't even have time for yourself anymore. You know? And I heard a story about a woman, a professor, and at one point she decided to sell everything she had. Everything she had, sold the house, sold the nice school, sold everything, and left the city that she lived in. And the children thought, Mom has gone crazy. Mom is having mental breakdown. What is going on? The woman wasn't having a mental breakdown. Guess what she did? That even surprised me. She moved in with somebody else. Riding a bicycle. Did you hear what I said? Riding a bicycle. Lived in a shared room, in a shared home, where she had a room and she had to trade her room with the chores in the house.
Wow.
I couldn't comprehend it, but you know what? I think I can comprehend it. But this woman, they said every time you see her, she's happy. She has time to sit and have a conversation because she has no more worries.
Yeah.
No more worries. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be incredible if that's the life we're still living now? Because we used to think that our grandparents, they had it hard because they didn't have the car, the bells and whistles that we have now. But you know, I really think, to be honest, I think they had the best life.
Yes.
I think the best life. There were less suicide. You know, there
more appreciation for life.
More appreciation for life and for people. More validation of who you are. They see you for who you are, not so much of what you can do for them or what you can bring. Right? So as we bring this conversation to the end, I want you to reach out, step on that virtual stage, reach out and pull all the things you have learned over the years and talk to that person. That woman right now is at the verge of losing it all mentally, at the verge of having the unthinkable happen. Or that child, that young girl, I can't do it anymore. How can I go on? Talk to that person.
So many times in life, we have things that come before us that look like wonderful opportunities. But attached to those opportunities, there are also, it's like an octopus, where you have 8 legs attached to the opportunity, but you can't see the legs that are underneath. All you see is the opportunity. When you step forth into the opportunity, you are now pulled over in this space, that space, and all these other places. You know, there's a saying that says all money is not good money. And I think one of the important ingredients in life is balance. Balance. Knowing when to work, when to play, when to love, when to stop, when to rest. The Bible says there's a season and time for everything. Yes. And we must be conscious about the seasons and the times. I believe we're in the season of prioritizing. What is most important in your life? For me, it's my children. It's setting aside time for nurturing with my children. Do you realize about 80% of families in America do not sit down and break bread together? There are some children who have never sat at a table and had dinner and conversation with their families. Let's go back to old times. Let's go back to the good old days. Let's eliminate unnecessary pressures and stressors. We don't really have to have all of these things. We want them, but we don't have to have them. If I could give you another word, simplify. Simplify your life. Put away the things that pull on you and drain you. Find a simpler way to do what you want to do. Automate your system. Put some hire an assistant, a virtual assistant. Do whatever you have to do to give your time, your precious time, and yourself to the people that you love. Make all the memories that you possibly can, because one day memories will be all we have.
And when
Your
you
life is precious. Your family time is more precious. Make it a priority and do it today.
awesome. And when it comes to mental issue that we so much don't like to talk about,
Mhm.
what is your suggestion of somebody who may have or think they have, and but they don't know, but it's impacting their life? What can you say?
What I can say is we have more options now than we've ever had before. So if you're uncomfortable with going and finding a therapist, and finding a therapist as far as women like shoe shopping, I'm not going to get the shoes that's too tight, they're uncomfortable. And I'm not going to get the shoes that flop around on my feet because eventually they'll rub my feet and they'll be uncomfortable. So you find a person, a therapist that you can talk to, that you're comfortable with. The benefit is the therapist is held by the laws of confidentiality and the code of ethics within their profession. When you find that person, if they share your information, you have the right to sue them for $250,000 and up to for them to go to prison for up to 10 years. So there's a lot on the line, and they are forced to keep your confidence. You don't have to worry about telling the story about Uncle Chester the molester getting out to the public. You don't have to worry about your mom beating you, your dad molesting you. You don't have to worry about that information ever being shared. But having a safe place that you could tell those painful stories to is critical. So find that person that you can talk to. If you can't do that, join an online group. Join an online group where you can stay anonymous if you want to. Uh, there are online therapy groups. So if you don't want to go out of your house, you can do that. But make sure that you're talking to someone. If you don't want to talk to anyone, journal.
That's a
Buy a
good
journal and start writing it down, and buy a lock cabinet so you can put your journal in the lock cabinet to keep it safe. But you are never without an option, and you are never without hope. Don't over spiritualize and think you can pray it all through and pray it away. It don't go away, it just goes deeper. Whatever you heal, whatever you conceal, you can never heal. So get the healing and not the concealment.
awesome.
You
Awesome. Everybody, we are talking about mental illness. We're talking about against all odds. That's right. Against how do we live life against all odds, moving forward in life and living it to the fullest, living it to the fullest. So, what is your contact number, or what is your contact? If someone want to reach out and talk to you, how can they do that?
They can do. I have no problem sharing my contact information. And I'll say it a few times. I've been trained in broadcast and media to repeat it. 810-845-0200. 810-845-0200. 810-845-0200. I'm on Facebook under Kathy Barton Brown. I'm on Instagram under Dr. Kathy Barton Brown. And you can just Google me and you can find me. But that is the contact number.
Awesome. Audience, thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, as you watch this video, as you watch our conversation, to go ahead and share it, because sharing is blessing, as I've always said. Whenever we do this show, it's to bless someone out there, because you never know who needs to hear this conversation. So go ahead and share the message, share the video as you are watching it. And don't forget to come back every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. My name is Dr. Christy Iwuchukwu, and I help female entrepreneurs create memorable presentations that help them stand out, be seen as the authority, so that they can enroll more of their ideal clients with ease, helping you confidently communicate your message so that you can narrate your story and not have somebody else write and narrate your own script. Until next time, everybody, thank you for watching. And Dr. Kathy Barton Brown, I appreciate you, sis, and thank you again. Bye-bye. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.